Steam engines. Everybody likes steam engines. Nobody really likes to work on them, I guess. The mechanisms seem to be a little bit complex, but everybody sure loves them. In this next step, in this here episode 2.1 of Resurrecting the Dinosaurs, and I have the .1 designation because this is going to be a multi-part series on this one. We're going to attempt to do a steam locomotive conversion. What you're watching now is a Mantua 282 Mikado, which was a conversion in and of itself. Even though it's using mostly stock Mantua parts, it was still a conversion in that it's got a can motor, Northwest shortline gears, and the thing literally runs like a Swiss watch. Pretty much it. Steam locomotives they can be finicky. If you're having a problem with one, it can teach you a few new cuss words. But when you get one that you work on, you build it, it comes out right, everything works right, it's one of the most satisfying things. And I find it much more satisfying than I ever did with diesels. Don't get me wrong, I love my diesels too, especially my F units, my old Jeeps, even the old SDs. I have a thing for the old Alco RS1. There isn't a diesel out there I don't like. But steam locomotives, they're special. One of the reasons I think they're special is because each railroad, or most railroads, you know, they didn't order basically off-the-shelf steam locomotives for the most part. Most railroads had to order steam locomotives that were built basically to order. A steam locomotive had to fit a certain specific type of requirement in order to operate over a given railroad. Unlike diesels, where you know, an off-the-shelf diesel with, you know, buyer options could work on virtually any railroad in the country. Steam locomotives didn't work that way. So let me show you the project. Here we have a Pimco Mountain. Pimco was a company that kind of took up the mantle when AHM went out of business back in the very early 1980s. They kind of took up the mantle of providing cheap steam locomotives. Bachmann's by that time were already hitting the $100 mark for their infamous Northerns. That, well, needless to say, a lot of people had to use that lifetime warranty, and even to this day still do. Pimcos, for the most part, were pretty decent runners. The steam locomotives pretty much had a tender drive. There's a motor and gear setup inside the tender here, if you can see that. And the drive axles are free rolling, which is, you know, which isn't a bad setup if it's done right. It's probably, you know, a lot of your European train manufacturers, model train manufacturers, do things that way as a norm. You could almost put a nice Athearn drive in that tender and get a nice decent drive in it. And as a result, you've got a good running locomotive. The problem with this one is the locomotive frame is broken. It's got a chunk broken out of it. I don't know how it happened, because this locomotive did run when it first arrived here. Unfortunately, because of that, it renders the locomotive useless. Well, I don't believe in useless locomotives. I believe in making them very useful again. There's a myriad of things you can do. What we're going to do with this locomotive here is, first of all, we're going to end up, the only parts that are going to be used on this locomotive on the is going to be the boiler shell, the pilot, and the pilot truck and trailing trucks. And what we're going to do is convert it to a 462 Pacific from a 482 Mountain. We're going to use a Mantua frame and drivers. I've got the valve gear sitting right here. I've got the connecting rods. There's some miscellaneous nuts and bolts and screws and stuff. In this bag I have some weights. They came off of another project that didn't work out. I've got a Bowser motor, and hopefully that Bowser worm gear will also work. Also in this bag I have a pickup kit that will be used to you know, create a power pickup for the tender. The tender we're going to use is by Bachmann. This tender evidently came off of one of Bachmann's 484 Northerns. Bachmann is famous for that. This is a good tender. It's a perfectly good tender, and I figure, why not use it? So I have put in some good metal wheels, you know, one side insulated, and we will set it up to where we pick up power from the trucks. Like I said, this is going to be a multi-part series, and all we're doing in this first part is taking stock of what we've got here and what we're going to work with. In the next series, we will actually start really going together. First thing first, typically you got to get ready to put the mechanism together pretty much first. Now I've mounted the steam chest here. Of course we'll take it loose again to be able to get the valve gear installed on here. Appears I've got one of the long screws needed for it missing, so I'm going to have to see if I've got one in stock somewhere. But and I'm sure that in one of my many junk boxes somewhere, somehow I have a long enough screw and maybe even a sleeve that'll fit things and we can make it work. If not, I'm going to have to try to find one, and that will be a trick. But somehow, some way, I will have this locomotive up and running. Now we're, you know, like I said, you take stock of your parts first, make sure you got enough parts. Like I said, we're going to attempt to use a Bowser motor. It looks like this Bowser gear, this, well actually, I'm sitting here pulling parts up from the ground there. That's a strong magnet. Wow. Picked up all 4 of my connecting rods. Anyway, let's see if we can get this motor to mount in here somehow. It's going to have to mount in such a way, yeah, but it will mesh with the gear. So as I said, it will mesh with the gear. We just got to get it to where it'll mount to where it's basically got the back end of the motor sticking way up in the air. Till I get this figured out and I can show you what I'm doing. Until next time, happy railroading.